I would like to give the floor to Bill Browder of the Hermitage Capital Management, who will speak on the case of the Hermitage lawyer Sergei Magnitsky, who died in custody in Russia. Bill, you have the floor.
Mr. McCaughey, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming here to hear me speak today. I'm going to share the story of Sergei Magnitsky. Sergei Magnitsky was my lawyer in Russia. He died under horrible and sadistic circumstances in my service, and it's my duty to present his story to as wide a group of people in the world as I can and make sure that justice is done in this case. The story starts 15 years ago when I went to Russia to become an investor. I eventually became the largest investor in Russia. And in the process, I discovered that many of the companies that I was investing in had enormous amounts of corruption going on. And so in order to fight the corruption, I decided to research and expose it through the mass media. And as you might imagine, that created a number of enemies. And in 2005, I was expelled from Russia. I was declared a threat to national security, and then my problems really started. In 2007, the Russian police raided my offices in Moscow. They took away all of our corporate documents, and then those documents were used to expropriate my investment holding companies. Following that, the documents were used to, through a complicated scheme, to steal $230 million of taxes that we paid to the Russian government. It wasn't our money that was stolen, it was the Russian government's money that was stolen by a group of police officers and criminals. I hired the smartest lawyer that I knew in Russia, a 36-year-old lawyer from an American law firm named Sergei Magnitsky, to help us identify what was going on, stop it, and try to bring some justice to the situation. Sergei did a very comprehensive research and discovered proof, documentary evidence of police involvement in this $230 million tax theft. Most lawyers in such a hot and controversial situation would have turned a blind eye and gotten themselves disengaged from the assignment, but not Sergei. Instead of turning a blind eye, Sergei did something which was pretty much unprecedented in Russia, which was he testified against the corrupt police officers who were involved in this crime. Instead of his testimony being acted on, the people he testified against arrested him 1 month later at his home in front of his wife and 2 children and put him in pretrial detention. They then began to torture him to try to get him to withdraw his testimony. They put him in a cell with 14 inmates and 8 beds and left lights on 24 hours a day in order to sleep deprive him. They put him in a cell with no heat and no window panes in Moscow in December, so he nearly froze to death. They put him in a cell with no toilet, just a hole in the floor where the sewage would bubble up. After 6 months of this treatment, his health started to seriously deteriorate. He lost 20 kilos, developed very severe stomach pains, and was diagnosed as having pancreatitis and gallstones and needing an operation, which was scheduled for the 1st of August, 2009. Instead of operating on Sergei on the 1st of August, they came to him 1 week before and presented him with a Faustian bargain, which was if he signed a confession to say that he stole the $230 million, they would allow him to have the operation. And for Sergei, living a life of truth was more important than his physical comfort, and he refused. And as a result, they abruptly moved him to a prison called Butyrka, which was notorious for being one of the worst prisons in Moscow. And most significantly for Sergei, they had no medical facilities whatsoever to perform the operation. At Butyrka, his health completely broke down. He went into such agonizing pain he could neither stand up or lay down to relieve the pain for himself. And they refused him all medical attention. He and his lawyers desperately applied for medical attention in writing to all arms of the Russian law enforcement system in writing on 20 different occasions. Every single one of those 20 requests was either ignored or denied. Pancreatitis is something that can be treated, but if it's not treated, it can be deadly. And on the night of November 16th, Sergei went into critical condition. Only then did they move him to a prison with a hospital. But when he arrived at the prison with the hospital, instead of treating him in the emergency room, they put him in an isolation cell, chained him to a bed, and allowed 8 riot guards with rubber batons to beat him for 1 hour and 18 minutes until he was dead. He died at the age of 37. He left a wife and 2 children and a dependent mother. How do we know all this? We know it because Sergei did something which was unprecedented in the history of the Russian penal system, which is every day when something bad was happening to him, he wrote a legal complaint about the violations. In his 358 days in custody, he wrote 450 legal complaints, all of which we have copies of. It's the most granular, well-documented human rights abuse case that I think exists today. Now, everything about this story is heartbreaking, but what's most shocking about this story, because this goes on every day. The Sergei Magnitsky story goes on every day in Russia. But what's most shocking about it, and what brings it to an international level of significance, is the high-level cover-up that's succeeded his death. Shortly after he died, the Interior Ministry held a press conference, and they announced, it's unfortunate that this criminal has died, but he never complained about his health. We had no idea that he was unwell. The head of the prison, the person who personally authorized the beating with rubber batons, issued a report saying, no violations found, cease any further probe, file the case into the archive. The judge, the most senior judge in Moscow, in charge of all the Moscow courts, exonerated all the judges, saying they must not have known about his health condition, even though they're the ones rejecting his complaints and his requests for medical attention. The police officers who became millionaires, as evidenced from public data, the Interior Ministry said all of their wealth is legitimate and declared. So we have this situation where you basically have no justice happening in Russia. And so we said to ourselves, if there is no possibility of justice inside of Russia, what can we do about this situation? And this was not a crime of politics. This was not a crime of ideology. This was not a crime of religion. This was a crime of money. And the people who committed this crime enjoy these types of crimes, enjoy traveling to the West, spending their money in the West, sending their kids to school in the West, etc. And so about 1.5 years ago, I decided to try something new in the world of human rights advocacy, which is to take away the privileges of the people who do this type of thing in terms of their travel and their ability to spend their money in the West. I started working with one of your colleagues, Senator Benjamin Cardin, who's head of the U.S. Helsinki Commission, and he put together, in partnership with Senator John McCain, something called the Sergei Magnitsky Rule of Law Accountability Act, which would freeze assets and ban visas and name names of the people who were responsible for the false arrest, torture, and death of Sergei Magnitsky, as well as do the same for other gross violators of human rights. This particular piece of legislation has 30% of the U.S. Senate on a bipartisan basis co-sponsoring it, and I predict it will pass this year. I've also been working with the Dutch Parliament, with Mr. Corruz, and with the Italian Parliament and many other parliaments. And I'm here today for those people who I haven't met to urge you to consider doing a similar type of thing in your countries with a parliamentary resolution. We're having an event tomorrow at noon to go into greater detail about this case, and I would welcome any and all of you to come to that so that we could engage further and that we could do justice in this horrible case. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Browder, for your presentation. We now move to the next speaker.